Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Louise Huber begins now.
Good evening. The woman who made a sexual harassment complaint against Labor MP David O'Byrne has spoken out, saying she has no faith in the investigation process. The findings of the investigation have not been released publicly, but David O'Byrne claims it has cleared him of the allegations.
Her parents, husband and friends by her side. Rachel Midson today telling her story publicly.
I did not ask for, want or invite any of the admitted behaviour from a man 15 years my senior, who was married with 2 young children and who had a significant amount of power over me in my workplace.
Earlier this year, she made a complaint to the Labor Party, accusing David O'Byrne of sexually harassing her more than a decade ago. Today, an independent report into his conduct was handed down to the party secretary.
The complaint about me was around sexual harassment and victimisation, and the investigation has shown that I did not engage in that conduct.
The findings have not been made public. David O'Byrne says at the time he believed the interactions were consensual.
It is, I shouldn't have engaged in conduct with a younger woman, a staff member in her early 20s. That was inappropriate, but I reject the allegations that it was harassment or victimisation.
But Rachel Midson says she has no faith in the investigation or its outcome, categorically denying she consented to the actions.
I did not ask or want to be kissed by him, and I pulled away on the occasions that he did kiss me.
Left questioning why her key witnesses were not interviewed during the investigation.
She felt her workplace was no longer safe for her and she left. This is not a consensual relationship. This is not a solicited relationship. This is sexual harassment.
In a statement, the Tasmanian Labor Party secretary says he now considers the investigation to be finalised, with no further action required, stating he accepts all the findings and recommendations made in the report. Rachel Midson says the outcome sets a precedent that should send chills down the spine of every girl and woman in the workplace.
People wonder why women don't come forward or take so long to come forward. Well, today is the answer, and this must change.
Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania is one of 3 states commissioned by National Cabinet to create a vaccination passport proposal for Australia. The Premier has been coy on the details, but tourism industry professionals say it's a path back to normality.
With Queensland's outbreak now broken, Tasmanian borders reopen.
From midnight tonight. All of Queensland will be low risk now, except for the high risk premises that will remain listed until they expire after 14 days.
But multiple border closures are still in place. Travel agents have spent a lot of time sitting on the runway this year.
Very frustrating at the moment. Unknown day by day of what each state and territory are doing with border closures, exemptions.
Vaccine passports could help smooth out domestic travel for those that have had their jabs.
Such a passport in place for those that can travel will hopefully encourage others to get on board, get vaccinated, and we can move forward.
The concept now in the pipeline here. Tasmania has been commissioned along with the NT and Victoria to provide advice to National Cabinet.
They were looking for a large state, a smaller state and also a territory. And I thought that Tasmania was well placed to provide some input into that.
More than 17% of Tasmanian jobs stem directly or indirectly from the tourism industry. It's an engine room of our economy. Restarting it could help the state move off financial life support.
Tasmania really ought to be at the forefront of arguing for something like a vaccine passport.
Until then, government forced to keep the industry running while we suppress the virus. The latest round of business hardship grants roll out from today.
Well, as long as the federal government is prepared to come to the party, as it seems to be, Tasmania, like other states and territories, can go a long way with lockdowns.
An update on the passport proposal is expected to be taken back to National Cabinet in the next fortnight. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
The dire COVID crisis is continuing to snowball across the country, with 4 major cities in lockdown. The nation's COVID epicentre, New South Wales, today recording hundreds more cases, with 1 in 9 of those positive infectious in the community.
For the last month, the New South Wales daily COVID updates have not posed optimism, only the question, how bad are the numbers today?
There were 452 locally acquired cases of COVID-19.
An encouraging drop on yesterday's figures. Less encouraging, the fact 50 infected people were mingling in the community.
In the last 24 hours, 75% of our cases in New South Wales were people under 40.
Sadly, another death too, an unvaccinated woman in her 70s. The New South Wales Premier says she won't budge on the heavy COVID restrictions until the state reaches her golden vaccination target.
Life will be much freer than what it is today once we get to 70% and 80%.
Essential workers are rushing to receive the shot, with proof of at least one jab needed to enter Queensland from Friday. A promising start to a snap 3-day lockdown in the Northern Territory. No new cases recorded today. A different story in the ACT, detecting 17 new infections, threatening to jeopardise next week's federal parliament. A deserted Melbourne awoke to tough new measures to curb this latest outbreak, including the closure of playgrounds.
It's harsh, certainly, because some adults don't make the right decision. The kids have to pay for it.
The latest targets of public outrage, the Jewish families who held an illegal engagement party in lockdown. The individuals at the centre have been bombarded with abuse and death threats, including from a hospital worker sacked after she posted anti-Semitic comments on social media.
There's no sense that anyone needs to be harassing anybody. It's simply evil.
Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
The planned elective surgery blitz has been detailed by the state's health minister. Jeremy Rockliff says improved nursing and bed capacity at the Royal will be key in delivering the 22,300 additional elective surgeries over the next 4 years.
The clinicians themselves have addressed sustainable future in terms of how that investment is applied and how we can reduce those elective surgery waiting lists to a sustainable level.
I think for the first time for a long time we've been able to now have a 4-year plan which will give certainty for public patient access.
The state's elective surgery waiting list currently stands at more than 11,000 patients. Launceston's real estate market is experiencing price growth not seen in a decade. Sellers are walking away with incredible profits, but for those trying to buy, it can be a bleak and brutal game.
This 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in Newstead went on the market on Monday last week. By Thursday, it sold for almost $100,000 more than the asking price.
A lot of local agents are achieving at least 1 or 2 sales a month in that 80 to 90,000 above asking.
Launceston's property market has experienced a dramatic turnaround, with many agents lacking listings.
We were often having to put property on market for 3 to 4 months or longer, reduce the price to sell. However, that's changed all in 18 months.
While sellers are cashing in thick and fast, it's a very different situation for those trying to get their foot in the door. Katie Mariner is struggling to find something in her price range.
It's hard to know, do I put in my max number and stretch myself financially just to get in, but then you can't live, you can't renovate, like where do you draw the line?
If you're leaving petrol in the tank, you are going to come second most times. So we can't sugarcoat it. It's market forces that are driving this, lots of market forces.
Despite the perception that it's mainly mainlanders buying up, agents say that's not the case.
Over 86% of buyers that we're dealing with, certainly in Launceston but statewide, are local buyers. So it's a locally driven marketplace, and that's a great sign for us moving forward.
And for the foreseeable future, there's no signs of it slowing down.
You should stay relatively on that growth cycle for the next 6 to 12 months at least.
Music to the ears of some. Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmania News.
Special action packs are being rolled out to every public primary school in Tasmania. Students at Summerdale Primary School opened theirs today, which consisted of skipping ropes, hula hoops and witches' hats to motivate children to take part in physical activity to improve their mental well-being.
We know kids who are physically active have lots of benefits for their sleep, managing stress, developing important social skills as well. And for us, it's about concentrating on learning, which is wonderful.
We want to make sure that this is fun, accessible, and can work with whatever the geography of a particular school actually is.
The packs are costing the government around $45,000. A Tasmanian disability organisation is celebrating 50 years of helping our most vulnerable people. The organisation's 5 community hubs all phoned into the celebrations, with cake cutting the main attraction as they looked back at their humble beginnings.
So it was formed way back in 1971 in Burnie, where a group of people who had concerns that there were no services available for their children with disabilities. So they formed a committee.
They now employ 400 staff and care for almost 300 clients across the state. A Tasmanian Kelpie is in the running for the top spot in this year's Trans-Tasman Farm Dog Challenge. The week-long competition showcasing the speed and agility of 12 canines across Australia and New Zealand.
She makes it look easy, but rounding up sheep is all in a day's work for 3-year-old Kit the Kelpie.
Normally, like over shearings, every day we're in the shed or in the when we're drenching sheep and that kind of stuff in the yards for 8-10 hours a day.
The hard-working pooch is in the race for top dog status in this year's Trans-Tasman Farm Dog Challenge. Each of the 12 canine competitors wearing a GPS collar, tracking their every move.
GPS tracks where she's been, the distance and the speed she goes at and how long she works for.
This year there's an extra element of competition with 3 New Zealand entries, but Kit's need for speed and raw talent could prove the winning combination.
She's very fast. Her speed might get her over the line, but yeah, just the amount of work we do.
The natural agility and speed of these working dogs means they're in high demand, with a Victorian Kelpie recently breaking the national auction record, selling for an impressive $35,000. Proving Kelpies really are suited to farm life. The winning team receives $3,000 in prize money, with the competition wrapping up on September 5. Ainsley Kosh, 7 Tasmania News.
The Tassie Tigers won't begin their Hockey One League campaign until at least the end of October, as the evolving COVID crisis puts the season on hold. Meanwhile, locally, Canterbury maintains it can beat any side in the Men's Premier League as it eyes its first final series in 2 years. The Lions remain just 4 points short of second position on the ladder after a 2-goal victory over University, but aren't getting ahead of themselves.
We want to win it, so we're not really taking it. We're not focused on the final game yet. We're more taking it one game at a time.
Meanwhile, in the women's, this Goal of the Year contender by Diamondbacks Phillida Bridley was the highlight in a 3-0 upset over Northwest Graduates.
Definitely that was a pretty good goal. We were just able to get a quick long corner away, and it's just a lucky shot, I guess.
It snapped a mid-season form slump in which the side has only won 2 of their last 7 matches. The master and the apprentice of the state's horse racing scene were on show in Devonport today, with Tasmanian Thoroughbred Still a Star and Mystic Journey competing in a star-studded trial. It's the first major hit-out in preparation for the spring racing season, but despite a late charge, both were pipped over 800 metres by Bolter de Roche. The Jack Jumpers are one of the first NBL clubs to finalise their playing roster for the upcoming season. Shooting guard Matt Kenyon has inked a 1-year deal and admits the COVID-free oasis of Tasmania was a selling point.
We can get the group together and really start working together. I think that'll be a massive advantage, and just have some consistent work rather than, training for a couple of weeks and going into lockdown and then training and then going back in.
Coach Scott Roth says the 23-year-old, who has trained with the Boomers and a raft of NBA sides, has been a top recruitment priority. St Kilda and Fremantle will clash in Hobart this weekend as the AFL scrambles to reschedule around COVID outbreaks. All fans will be required to wear masks at Blundstone Arena. Pundits consider the match a dead rubber, with the Saints only a mathematical chance of making next week's finals.
Good
Evening around the state today. Hobart had 13 degrees, Launceston and Devonport our high with 15 and Burnie a top of 14. Mount Wellington our low with -4 to start us off. Smithton, Low Head and St Helens all 14. Bushy Park and the Islands 13 degrees. Strawn 12, Lyawini 3. A light shower over the west and far south from the cloud that gathered there. Clear conditions prevailed over the north and east. Low cloud lies over the southern ocean and the southeastern states. Most of the continent, though, is cloud-free, apart from areas of cloud over WA and North Queensland. Tomorrow, a large high dominates the weather over most of the mainland. A trough crosses Western Australia and a cold front approaches the far west. West to northwesterly winds at 15 to 20 knots, light over the upper east, but to 30 knots over southern waters. Strong wind warning, that's from Tasman Island to Low Rocky Point. Heading into the middle of the week and mostly cloudy for Hobart, 14 the high, 13 the top for Geeston, a cloudy Bothwell and 12 degrees. Launceston, 0 overnight again, 15 the top, early fog and frost, cloudy for Devonport, 14 the maximum, 14 also for Cressy. Burnie 14 and a cloudy day, showers increasing for Strawn, 13 the maximum, 13 for Curry on King Island, a high of 15 for St Helens, 16 for Swansea, Orford 15, fine but partly cloudy along the east coast. On Thursday, showers over the west, far south and north, fine for the rest of the state. Looks like a few showers right across the state on Friday, more frequent over the north and west though. Strong winds in the mix as well. While on Saturday the showers continue, they'll ease in the afternoon and contract to the west. A shower or two in Perth tomorrow. Partly cloudy in Adelaide, fully cloudy in Melbourne, sunny in Sydney, a 19 there, and a possible shower forecast for Brisbane. Mostly cloudy in Hobart, 9 degrees at the moment, 8 in Launceston, clear in Devonport and 10. Fairly good tomorrow, Louise, apart from a few showers over the west. What I'm looking forward to, of course, though, is catching up with you again tomorrow night.
I really can't wait. I've been counting it down already. Thanks for that, Murph. That's all your news for tonight. I'll be back later with updates. Thanks for joining us. Have a lovely evening. Good night.